Okay. So, Stephen, I have another burning question for you. So, in our country, you delve into just like the decades of research that's been conducted on blue zones, which for folks who are unaware, those are communities in the world where people tend to live significantly longer. And you came away with some key insights around how to turn your life into a high flow blue zone. So can you share some of those takeaways with us?
Yeah, this is, I guess, I said in the beginning, there's a couple of origin stories. This was one of the other origin stories. So as many of you may know, my wife and I have done hospice care for dogs for 20 years now. We ran Rancho de Chihuahua hospice and dog sanctuary in New Mexico for a long time. We're now running the Buddy Zoo hospice home for old dogs. And when we set up Rancho de Chihuahua in New Mexico 18 years ago, or however long it was, we wanted to specialize. My wife wanted to specialize in the worst case scenarios, and I just didn't know any better, so I agreed to go along with this insanity. And so, our dogs, if you're like a three-legged, one-eyed Chihuahua with an abusive past, cancer, heart disease, and flatulence, you're our dog, right? Like, we love you. That's who we work with. Obviously, all these dogs go to the vet before they come to us, and the vets would say, hey, don't get really attached to this one. Really sick animal, maybe a month to live, 2 months at best, take care of your emotions kind of thing. And we created a healing protocol that was interesting, but not super fancy. It was just based on some flow science, some evolutionary biology, some really sort of simple, straightforward ideas. And the dog didn't die. Like, they wouldn't die in a month or 2 months. And on average, these dogs that were supposed to be done in a couple of months were living 4 to 5 years longer. And I don't just mean like living, they were thriving. We do off-leash backcountry hikes. We were doing like 3 to 5 miles a day in the backcountry up and down mountains when they were supposed to be dead. And it was a lot of dogs. And I couldn't figure out what the hell, like, it was weird. It was too much. And one of the things I started to discover is that I wasn't alone in this. There's a movement in pet health to double canine lifespan. It's sort of a global movement. We were applying some of the low-end stuff and getting really interesting results of the low-tech stuff. But my point is, in trying to figure out what we were doing, I started to realize that I wasn't the only one asking these questions. I just happened to be asking them about dogs. A bunch of other people were asking them about humans. And they were finding these blue zone communities where people lived an extra 10 to 12 years longer than most other people, and they were very healthy and what was going on. And they spent a long time figuring it out. And I realized that everything that they were doing in the blue zone communities, we were essentially doing with our dogs. And that was what we did. We essentially turned our lives into sort of like high flow blue zones. And I want to stop and say, because we've got a lot of smart people in the audience, blue zone research itself, Dan Buehler's research, is a little controversial. And I want to talk about why that is. One, and this is a guy who's been a journalist and a scientist, and I will tell you that scientists don't like it when journalists play scientists. And Dan Buehler is a journalist with National Geographic, and he's teamed up with tons of scientists all over the world. But some of this is just literally like people are very territorial. Some of it is that there are certain claims being made about very specific health diet practices and things like that there are open loopholes on. Where there are no open loopholes, where there's agreement, 30 to 40 years worth of studies, is that lifestyle matters. And there are very specific lifestyles that matter for peak performance aging. And there's zero controversy over it. So while there's a blue zone diet and a blue zone, all that stuff, and yes, there's arguments there's none about the lifestyle stuff. So what is the lifestyle stuff? Regular exercise, right? People move around a ton in blue zones. It's not often super, super rigorous, but regular exercise. So like what I recommended earlier, 150 to 300 minutes of moderate to vigorous a week covers you, but regular exercise. There are also, folks in blue zones tend to be very social. There tend to be an emphasis on family and spiritual or religious belonging. And when they look under the hood of that, like, what is that? It's all the pro-social neurochemistry you get from being part of any community. But what you get in religious communities that you don't tend to get in other communities is altruism and empathy. And those are the variables that really seem to matter lifestyle wise. And so we can go on from there if you want, but the studies of the Blue Zone research is lifestyle matters. Another thing that is common in the Blue Zones is people live with passion, purpose, and regular access to flow. That was what really started to change with our dogs. Also, we would take them into these off-leash backcountry hikes up and down mountains. We would run through the backcountry. It's very flowy for the dogs. Dogs get into flow just like humans, and just like humans, it's really, really good for them. And so this is also really, really common in Blue Zones. The thing we did with our dogs is literally we just said, okay, we're going to match the diet that our dogs evolved to eat. So like, and one of the things that is nobody really seems to argue with in Blue Zones is like, we evolved to eat certain kinds of foods, and those tend not to be processed. And there's no one diet that works for everybody, but it's pretty clear that processed foods and lots of sugar, there's things we know don't work. Yeah, right. There's nothing that works across the board for everybody, but there are things that definitely don't work across the boards for everybody.